Today, in a few minutes, on this very day, and at this moment in time, you'll learn prepositions of time. In particular, the prepositions in, on, and at. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, and if you're a new listener to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years teaching English together, well, not together, but teaching English separately and together, Reza and I are going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm fine, Craig. How are you?
At the moment, here on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock, I'm feeling fine. How are you?
Yes, at the moment, yes, but ask me in a few hours and we'll see.
Well, we're speaking about prepositions and hopefully we'll be able to clarify these three prepositions for you. But before that, we have a voice message from our friend Rafael from Mislata here in Valencia.
Hello, Reza and Craig. My name is Rafael. I was born in Montroi, Valencia, a small village 30 kilometers away from the capital, but currently I'm living in Mislata, just next to Valencia. I'm very glad to find out about your podcast by chance on internet, and since I discovered your podcast, I listen to it every day in my job, at least one or two episodes per day. And I found out very interesting all your job you both are doing. I would like you to comment about Valencian wines. You know that we have 3DO here, Denominación de Origen. I think they are quite good wines within Spain, and I would like you to comment about them and to hear from you all the words you know and you have to use when you talk about wines. I hope you are enjoying here in Valencia our wines, our food, our city, and I would like to meet you someday if possible. Thank you very much. I will continue listening to your podcast, and it's been a pleasure.
And it was a pleasure to get your voice message, Rafael. Always wonderful to hear from a neighbor here in Valencia. And thank you very much for taking the time to send in your comments in the audio message. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, that was a very nice message, Rafael. Thanks very much. The first thing I would say is that we've already answered your question. You probably don't know it, but we have already recorded an episode on wine. Was that number 210, Craig?
It was. Go to inglespodcast.com/210, Rafael, and we hope you'll enjoy that podcast specifically about wine. One small comment, especially because this podcast is focused on prepositions. You said that you listened to our podcast. You said, in my job. We know exactly what you mean, although I think it's more common to say at work. So I listen to you at work. I listen to the podcast at work. And another small mistake about prepositions, you said to comment about. It's more common to say to comment on something. So would you comment on the wine that you drink, for example?
One other little thing, you said that you hope we're enjoying here in Valencia. Of course, we know what you mean, but you should say that you hope we're enjoying it here in Valencia. Or you could say enjoying ourselves here in Valencia. You have to have an object with enjoy.
He could say enjoying your time living in Valencia.
Your time, your life, anything, but you've got to have an object with enjoy. You cannot just say, are you enjoying? No, you can't say that in English. Are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying your time? Are you enjoying your life? So remember the object there. But of course, we understood everything you said, and it was a very, very good message.
Have you been drinking a lot of wine at home recently? Do you have a favorite wine at the moment?
Well, funny. First of all, your first question: have you been drinking a lot? A little bit more than I used to. I blame it on the confinement, on the lockdown. Apparently, government statistics have revealed that all of us, in general, we've been drinking and eating more at home. And I noticed that I've put on a bit of weight. And yes, I probably did hit the bottle. That means drink a bit too much. More than I should have, out of boredom in the confinement.
Yeah.
I have to admit it. But as you know, Rafael, I'm not the only one. Have I tasted any good wine lately? Yes, I have. I've tasted some very good wine, as you say, from Valencia. Utiel Requena is a good denominación de origen. I like quite a lot of wine from there. Craig, you're not a big fan of wine, are you?
I never have been. No, I've never been a wine drinker. I used to drink beer, a lot of beer, although these days I tend to eat too much chocolate, so I stay away from the alcohol these days. But yeah, I'm overeating, which means I'm eating too much, especially sweet things like biscuits and chocolates and cakes. That helps me feel better, although not after I've eaten it. Next, we have a voice message from Eric from La Gomera.
Hi guys, I'm Eric from La Gomera Island. First of all, I would like to thank you for all your help. I started to listen to your podcast about a year ago, and now I've noticed how I've really improved a lot on my listening skills. I would like to suggest you to make a podcast about accents like Australian, and also about the difference between in, on, and at. Because despite of my certificated B1 level, I still don't know how to use them currently, and I struggle a lot with it. So thanks and bye.
Thank you very much, Eric. Lovely to hear from you and get your message. And I really like the way you're using a variety of verb tenses when you're speaking. You correctly used the past simple very effectively when you said, I started listening to your podcast a year ago. And you also used the present perfect very well. I think you said something like, I have studied or I have listened or something. So I noticed the variety in your verb tenses. You're using them very well and very accurately. So well done.
Yes, I agree with Craig, and I would add that your pronunciation is very, very good. I'm surprised to hear that you say you have a B1 certificate, because your speaking sounds really like a B2. Very, very good.
Yeah, some lovely expressions like I struggle with and really B2 language. So you're doing very well, very, very well.
Having said that, just in your interest to help you, not to be the party pooper, aguafiestas, but to help you, I did notice a little mistake or two. You said something which is a common mistake, even at B2 level or C1 level. You said, I would suggest you to make a podcast about accents.
Australian accent, he said.
That's it, isn't it? Suggest you to make. That's wrong. We say, I would suggest that you make. So just use a standard subject and verb, you make, not infinitive after suggest. I would suggest that, or know that, I suggest you make a podcast about accents. Another little thing, you said despite plus of. That's an understandable mistake because people confuse it with in spite of. So, in spite of, yes, but despite, no of. You should have said, despite my B1 certificate, without the word of.
And we really liked your suggestion to speak about prepositions. We have spoken about prepositions before on the podcast. If you go to episode 139, that's inglespodcast.com/139, we focused on the prepositions out, up, of, and off with two Fs. Today we're looking at prepositions of time, specifically in, on, and at. So Reza, let's focus on in first. When do we normally use the preposition in when we speak about time?
Well, just before I start, I'm going to restate what Craig said. He said about time. So there are many uses of all these prepositions in, on, at, but we're only talking about time. All right? So, in for time. It's used for months, also for years, centuries, periods, and the time of day, plus a few other things. For example, a month. In May. I'll see you in May. Or, in June, I did my exam.
What were we doing in May this year?
Not much because of the coronavirus lockdown.
We were in lockdown in May, weren't we?
As I said to Raphael, in May I was eating cheese and drinking wine at home.
I was eating chocolate and teaching online in May. Not at the same time.
Craig, can you remember what you were doing in 2014?
I remember that we started the podcast together in 2014. I think I started podcasting on my own very badly, doing solo podcasts in 2012, probably, or maybe 2013, but we started in 2014 together.
So Craig's talking about a year there. I could say in 2009. Could I say it another way? Can I say 29?
I wouldn't say 29.
No, you can't.
I'd say 2010 maybe.
Right. That's a curious thing. So I'm getting off the topic a little bit, but since it's related to what we're talking about, saying years is not so easy in English. If only it was just there's one way and you say it. No. I said in 2014, but I could have said in 2014. They're both correct.
Yep.
However, there's a period of 9 years where there's only one way to say it. The year 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
However, I remember in the year 2000 when nobody was sure how to say 2001 because some people wanted to say 2001, for example. So people weren't sure. And then it kind of got established as 2001, 2002, etc.
But curiously, after that, so from 2010 onwards, you can also say 2010 if you want. Or 2011, 2011. So then there are two ways to say that. That's weird, I know, but that's it. So in 2014 or in 2014.
And we're recording this podcast in 2020.
If we go back to the past, there's only one way to say most years. For example, in 1867, Queen Victoria was the Queen of the United Kingdom. 1867, in 1867. So we divide it into two. Craig, what about if you've got a zero somewhere in the middle of a year?
If it's, for example, 1206, the zero I would pronounce as a British speaker, O. So 1403, 1206, 1509, etc. Do the Americans do the same?
Good question.
We don't know.
What do they do?
Who cares? Who cares what the Americans do?
I think they do. I think in American English it's the same. In 1206, I think it's the same.
Yeah, I think they do. And of course, the years before Christ was born, or as we say in English, BC, then it's, well, BC. So 23 BC, before the birth of Christ.
Although there are several ways to say the year in English, all of them go with the preposition in. In plus a year.
And centuries as well. We talk about the 20th century as being in the 20th century or in the 21st century. And notice the article the as well. So it's in the 21st century.
Another use of the article for a period of time could be in the 90s. Or I could use the longer version, in the 1990s. So if we go back about 30 years in time, we were in the 90s or in the 1990s. So that's for a decade. In the 90s, in the 80s, in the 50s, in the 70s, etc. Can you think of any other periods where we could use the expression in?
Yeah, another word for period is an era, ERA. So we could speak about being in the Victorian era, for example, or in the Edwardian era. And also in the days of, do you remember when we used to write in the days of the typewriter before computers? We used to write by hand in the days of the pen and paper, in the time of the dinosaurs.
Well, I don't remember that long back.
Well,
I remember.
we are dinosaurs as teachers, aren't we? We are dinosaurs, Reza, so we are in the time of the dinosaurs. Another expression which is quite common, in a minute. I'll phone you in a minute. I'll speak to you in a minute. I'll reply to your text in a minute or in 5 minutes.
Other periods of time, in an hour, in a decade, in 50 days, in a century, etc.
So I could say to Reza, we're nearly at the end of this podcast. We'll have lunch in about half an hour. So in a half an hour, we'll have lunch. Remember, all of these expressions are available for you to read in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/325.
Of course, the three main ways of describing time are past, present, and future. And all of those also go with the word in the past, in the present, in the future. Craig, do you think in the future there'll still be English teachers?
I think there will be, but maybe not for some things that are being taught these days. I think in the future there will be fewer English teachers and their job will be maybe a bit different and more focused. What about you?
Yeah, I think the same as you, that we will exist, but with a reduced role, let's say.
We also use the preposition in for different times of the day. For example, we say in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. Pero ojo, be careful. We don't say in night or in nighttime. We say at night. So it's in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, but not with the word night. What's the first thing you do in the morning when you get up?
Not very glamorous. I go to the toilet.
Okay.
And you?
I wash my face. In the morning when I get up, the first thing I do is wash my face, and then I go to the toilet.
Let's move on to on. It sounded weird, but it was true. I said, let's move on to on. 3 prepositions together. That's not unusual in English. Get used to it, acostúmbrate, because we love prepositions in English. I said, let's move on. Move on means continue. It's a phrasal verb. To the word on. So let's move on to on. Sounds strange, but it makes sense.
And we use on when we speak about days, dates, and occasions. For example, with days like Sunday. I'll see you on Sunday. Or let's meet on Thursday morning. Actually, we are recording this podcast on Thursday morning.
Also for dates, as Craig said, so with a specific number. American or British English, we don't mind. American on September 28th. Or you can add the word the if you want. On September the 28th. And in British English, we normally say the number first. So on the 28th of September. Both are correct.
Other expressions with on, connected to time, you can say on my birthday, on New Year's Day, on our wedding day, on the day we first met. So anything connected to days, any special days or any days of the week, use the preposition on.
At was our third preposition, talking about time. Remember, we're only talking about time. We're not talking about other things like movement, motion, position, just time. At is basically for a specific time.
What time did you get here today?
I got here at approximately 11 o'clock.
What time did you get up?
I got up at
10 to 11.
if only. No, I had to take a bus at about 10 past 10, so I got up at about 8:30.
Same as me. Also, but specific times of the day. For example, 12 o'clock. In the middle of the day, we can say noon, N-O-O-N, so at noon. And we can also say midday, M-I-D-D-A-Y, at midday. So 12 o'clock at night, of course, is midnight. So at midnight. I'll see you at midnight.
Other specific times of the day, without a number, but it's still a time of the day. Sunrise. Obviously, when the sun rises, when it comes up. So you can do things at sunrise, or the opposite, at sunset. So when we say the sun sets, we mean the sun goes down. So the opposite of sunrise is sunset. Or, pretty similar to that, at dawn, whenever the sun's coming up, the start of the day, and at dusk, D-U-S-K. Craig, would you often use the expression at dawn?
Not often, but I mean, that's the correct preposition. So if I was speaking about meeting someone at dawn, or the birds started singing at dawn, or we took a lovely photograph this morning at dawn, then that's the preposition you need. So if you're speaking about the time when the sun comes up, when the sun rises, the preposition with dawn is at.
But we don't often use that expression if we're talking about business, do we? You don't meet someone to talk about business at the dawn. You meet someone in the morning.
At 6 o'clock.
Right. At 6 o'clock or in the morning or in the afternoon, whatever. At dawn sounds just a little bit more literary, a little bit more poetic, a little bit more old-fashioned, let's say. A bit. People still use it, but you wouldn't use it in business, for example.
No, because it's not a specific time, and in business you want to be more precise, more accurate, definitely. I agree. What are you doing at the moment? Are you driving in your car? Yes, I mean you. I'm talking to you. Are you driving in your car at the moment?
Yeah, but don't take your eyes off the road, eh? Keep watching the road.
Are you doing exercise at the moment? Are you walking your dog at the moment? What are you doing at the moment? You can also say at that moment or at the minute. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit busy at the minute, which is a similar meaning to at the moment. I can't help you at the moment. I'm busy. I can't help you at the minute. I'm doing something.
Yeah, Craig said at that moment. Students often ask me, is that present or past? It's for either. So I could say, I remember when I met my wife. At that moment, I knew we would live together forever.
That's the past simple, met.
Yep. So
That's
I
in the
met
past.
and at that moment. Or could be future. Could say, I haven't met the woman of my dreams yet, but I know in the future when I meet her, at that moment, I'll feel it in my heart. At that moment. So that moment can be past or future. Mm-hmm. But as Craig said, when you're talking about the present right now, you normally say the. So at the moment, at the minute, we're recording a podcast. Also, sometimes people use the word this at this moment instead of the, don't they? So this can also be the present.
And when we're speaking about specific times of the year, we can use the preposition at, but not for specific days, because we said before it would be on Christmas Day, on New Year's Day. But if we're speaking generally around a time, we would say at Christmas or at Easter or at the New Year. So it's around that time, not on a specific day. And that's very important when you're speaking about your holidays, for example. I'm going away at Christmas, or I'll come and see you at Easter. It's around that Easter time.
And talking about specific times, Remember we said it was in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, but night is the exception. We say at night.
Why is English so difficult like that?
There's no logic to that. You just have to learn it. At night.
And of course, we say at the weekend. I'm going out for dinner at the weekend. Although in the USA and Australia, you may hear on the weekend. So both of those prepositions are acceptable. What are you doing at the weekend?
I'm going to relax and I'm going to stay at home, I think.
Surprise, surprise.
And you?
At the weekend, I will probably be editing podcasts. One of my favourite pastimes. Let's look at these prepositions in more general discussions. So let me ask you this, Reza, because maybe it's changed. What time do banks close these days? Because I think the hours of the banks changed in the pandemic. Do you know what time the banks close?
Do you know, I'm not sure, because even before the pandemic, I hadn't been in a bank physically for quite a while. I'd just been banking online.
Me too.
Is it about 1 o'clock or something they close?
I think they close later. I think they close at 3 or maybe at 2:30, around that time.
You're talking about Spain.
Yeah.
And what about in the UK? What time do banks usually close in the UK?
But they used to close at 5, didn't they? But maybe they didn't have service for the public at 5 o'clock. So maybe they closed at 3. I can't remember. It's been a long time.
Yeah. I think they used to close earlier. I think they used to close at about 3:30. Mm-hmm. But I think now they stay open a bit later to maybe 4 or 5.
Let me ask you a question about Belfast. What's the weather like in December in Belfast?
In December, not very nice. It's probably going to be raining, possibly snowing. It's definitely going to be windy and generally wet and grey in December, for sure. Craig, do you like to do anything special on your birthday?
On my birthday, I like eating chocolate cake, and I usually do whatever I feel like doing. So it's a free day with usually no work. So on my birthday, I just do whatever I feel like doing.
And when is your birthday?
In May, on the 25th. When's yours?
It's in December.
And what do you like to do on your birthday? Anything special?
I like to do as little as possible.
Maybe have some wine, some cheese.
Oh, yeah. Just like a normal day for me. A normal day at the office.
What's your area like where you live in Valencia? What's it like at night? Is it a dangerous area at night? Is it busy? Is it quiet?
It's quite busy. Busy in the good sense that there are plenty of bars and restaurants and cafes. So at night is definitely safe. What about your barrio, your neighborhood?
Well, this time of the year, like in the summer, so in July, in September, in August, in June, it's very busy because I live near the beach. There are lots of tourists. In the winter, it's beautiful. In the winter months, it's really, really lovely. So at the beach in the winter, it's very, very nice. Not busy at all.
Craig, is your morning routine different at the weekend?
It used to be, because I used to work more during the week and the weekend was more for relaxing. Although we used to work on Saturday mornings, didn't we? And we don't work Saturday mornings now. So since the pandemic, every day kind of is similar to the one before and the one after. The days don't seem to matter at the moment. Every day is the same. So at the moment, my weekends are the same.
Would you say that you go to bed in the evening later at the weekend?
No, I'm going to bed later in general. So I used to go to bed at maybe 12 midnight, at midnight, or maybe at 11:30. Now I'm going to bed later at 1:30, 2 a.m. And I'm getting up later. So I'm getting up later in the morning. What about you?
Yes, exactly the same as you. I think I'm getting up later and going to bed later. Yeah, just because we don't meet so many people now in the business sense, face to face. So there's no pressure to get up early.
Yep. What's your favorite day of the week?
Favorite day of the week? It depends on the week. Never been a big fan of Mondays. Don't really like Mondays. Because Monday, it's the start of a routine, etc., which has its good things, but I'm this type of person who likes a bit more. I like the idea of breaking routines. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of having routines, but then breaking them as well. So Monday's not my favorite day. Probably Thursday. I've always been a fan of Thursday because Thursday is like the beginnings of the weekend, but it's not quite the weekend. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
It's my favourite day because that's the day you often come around to podcast on Thursday morning.
Good point, yeah.
And what's your favourite time of the day?
Definitely not first thing in the morning. I'm not at my best in the early morning.
You're not a morning person?
No, not first thing in the morning, although I quite like mid-morning. So kind of 11 o'clock, maybe even midday, that's quite a time I like. But I don't like when I just get up because I often feel a bit stiff in the morning. A bit rigid.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah. Oh, don't misunderstand me.
Maybe you better explain that, Reza.
I'd better, hadn't I? I'm referring to my articulations, my joints. I quite often feel a little bit stiff in the morning, and I need a bit of time to limber up. Limber up means to get things moving, flowing smoothly. So I loosen up after an hour or two. So I've never liked first thing in the morning, but mid-morning. Let's presume I get up at a reasonable time. Of course, if I get up at 11:30, then I don't feel great at 11:30. But let's say I get up at 8:30, then from about kind of 10 o'clock onwards, that's good. What about you?
Well, I'm like you. I'm often very stiff in the morning, but that's usually my brain more than my body. It takes me a long time to wake up. So do not speak to me in the morning because I probably won't answer. I'm very, very bad. And there are two expressions that you might like to know if you hadn't heard them before. You can be an early bird or you can be a night owl. If you're an early bird, you feel very good and fresh in the morning. You love waking up early and enjoying the morning. But if you're a night owl, you're more productive at night and you're more awake in the early hours of the morning. So you'd probably stay up late until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So you're a night owl if you do that. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm more of an early bird, but I'm not very good when I wake up very early in the morning. Well, now it's your turn to practice your English. Are you an early bird? Are you a night owl? Do you wake up early in the morning? Why don't you send us a voice message and practice some of these prepositions? It's always good to practice your speaking and make sure you're using the correct preposition. You can contact us by voice message on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Of course, we also have that application on the webpage at inglespodcast.com. Send us a voice message and practice your English. Reza, how can people contact us by email?
You could write to us. There's Craig. Write to him at craig@inglespodcast.com or me, belfastreza@gmail.com. And we'd be interested to know either by email or in a voice message, is there a particular time of the day that you like to listen to the podcast? We're curious to know. Do you listen to us in the morning? Is there any particular day? Do you like to listen on a Monday or a Friday? Do you like to listen at night? We're curious to know. When do people listen to us? So let us know what time of the day and what day of the week you listen to us.
And before we go, we'd like to thank all the wonderful people who are supporting our work on Patreon and supporting our podcast. You can see a list of all our Patreon supporters over at Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. We'd like to welcome the new Patreon supporter this month, who is Pedro Mut. Thank you very much, Pedro, for joining Patreon. And if you'd like to join him and lots of other people who are supporting us, you can go over to patreon.com/Ingles podcast, and for as little as $1 per month, you get instant access to recent transcriptions. What's next week, Reza?
The title of next week's episode is It's a Game Changer.
What does that mean and how can you use it? Listen to us next week and you'll find out. Thank you for listening this week. Until then, stay safe, take care. It's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
The music in this week's podcast was by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.